Hello, I'm Marina Kim. You are watching news from Kazakhstan, and here are the headlines. Olympic champion Zulfiya Chinshanlo returned back to Kazakhstan. However, the situation with her citizenship remains unclear still. There is an offer to rename Zhanaozen to Biket Ata. Whose idea is this and what local residents think of it? Bike ride around the world. Cyclists from Catalonia stopped in Almaty for rest. Kazakhstan is starting to get annoyed by the situation around the Olympic champion Zulfiya Chinshanlo. State officials actively refute the information spread by Chinese mass media that athlete changed her citizenship. Zulfiya herself has overturned these rumors. More details in the next report.
Many people have been waiting for the return of the London Olympics champion for over a week. Only Zulfiya Chinshanlo personally could clarify whether she will change her citizenship and which country she'll represent now during sporting events. The athlete's silence didn't help the matters and left her coach Vladimir Ni to fend off reporters. Are you changing your citizenship? No, these are all rumors. It's quite clear where the rumors are coming from. The details of Chinshanlo's change of nationality are spread by the Chinese media. Now even the deputy coach of the Hunan province weightlifting team, Zhou Znufo, is saying he will resolve the issue once and for all. The problem is Kazakh Foreign Ministry isn't likely to agree. During today's phone conversation with our ambassador to China, he told me that Chinese weightlifting center and MFA didn't speak to Kazakhstan about Zulfiya Chinshanlo's return to China through their diplomatic channels. Respectively, the foreign ministry considers it inappropriate to comment on the sensation artificially created by some Kazakh media. If Zulfiya Chinshanlo does decide to return to China, it will certainly outrage her new fans. Internet is openly negative about the whole situation, while sports communities leave the decision to the champion herself. The young woman brought gold for Kazakhstan and now has a right to decide what to do with her career and where to live. Kazakhs have a saying that if you want to become famous, burn the field. Of course, the situation when two countries enter into an argument because of one sportsman is unpleasant, and I think it's about time to put this whole story to rest. As for Chinshanlo herself, it appears she is only unhappy with her Kazakh name and really wants to get back her original Chinese name, which is Zhao Chanlin.
Former Chief of Staff and current Head of Accounting Committee Aslan Musin returned to Kazakhstan after vacation. On Monday, he held the first work session after the medical treatment in Germany.
As reported by the state-owned KTK channel, Musin made a public appearance in the company of President Nazarbayev during the Kurbanite celebration in the capital mosque Hazret Sultan. Previously, the press actively speculated that after his resignation from the Chief of Staff position, Musin fled abroad and wasn't planning on returning. On top of that, some sources indicated that Musin was even trying to get in contact with other political exiles and planned to launch an anti-Nazarbayev campaign, revealing all the back secrets of the president's administration.
There is offer to rename Zhanaozen to Biket Ata. This information was spread by some Kazakh mass media. Supposedly, the initiative was voiced by local elderly and pensioner Aydarov in particular. However, not all Zhanaozen residents support the initiative. Almost all state institutions are discussing the idea. One of them is Ozinjlu municipal enterprise.
Over 400 company employees have expressed their dissent. They believe that the initiative to rename the city is purely political, and it was an order of the authorities. Zhanaozen residents are convinced that the question itself is absurd and indeed pointless, especially with the anniversary of the tragic events of December 16 approaching. Moreover, the residents will not let anyone play with people's feelings. Biket Ata is a sacred name for any Kazakh, but using it to name the place where the blood of peaceful residents was spilled is at least morally wrong, they say. The journalist had no luck in finding the author of this idea, a retiree Asalbek Aydarov, while the local administration office refused to make comments, claiming to have no relation to the elder. In the meantime, based on some sources, Aydarov urgently flew out to Astana. He has worked as director of different schools and then, in the 90s, headed the local Zhanaozen newspaper. He wrote a book called Transformed Zhanaozen, published to one of the anniversaries of the oil town. Currently, Aydarov is retired. However, his former colleagues from a local newspaper say that he often participates in activities of local administration. In fact, this isn't the first time he suggested to rename the city. According to the local residents, 2 years ago, he suggested to the local authorities to rename Zhanaozen into Nurozen. This decision cannot be made in few days. Let me think it through for a few months or the whole year, if that's the case. Should anything happen tomorrow, would those who made the decision be held liable? This is wrong. I respect Beket Ata, and we still don't know whether we are actually worthy of this name, so personally I don't support this idea. Beket Ata was a saint. No one ever named villages or towns after prophets or saints. We will not allow renaming Zhanaozen. I am confident that the authorities want to erase the events of December 2011 from the memories of people by doing so.
The reaction of possible renaming of Zhanaozen followed immediately. Experts directly linked the initiative of elderly with the clumsy efforts to rewrite the history of the oil city. Why the state needs political rebranding? Find out from the next report.
Historian Bereket Karibayev is a real expert and academician, but to learn from history one doesn't really need to be a professor. Karibayev cites the city of Uralsk, located in the oil-rich region of Kazakhstan, as an example. To erase Pugachev's uprising from the people's memory, the name of Zhaik River was changed to Ural by a special decree of the Empress. The news that city of Zhanaozen might undergo a name change is one of the most discussed topics in the local internet community. Political scientist Aidos Sarim commented the matter using Facebook. According to George Marshall, one of the prominent politicians of the 20th century, one should not fight with problems. On the other hand, it is also obvious that issues can be resolved simply by changing their names. It seems to me that regardless of how many times we rename the place, the events won't get less significant and won't disappear from people's memories. According to regulations, a few steps are required to change the name of any area like a city or a street. Following an application of citizens, a committee of experts will have to look at whether the subject indeed requires the change. And if the answer is yes, the nomination is forwarded for the approval of the MPs. Simple public will is no longer enough. According to a presidential decree signed on November 24, 2010, a moratorium was placed on renaming of geographic locations. Since then, we've been waiting for a new law, and the bill is still reviewed in the parliament. The onomastic bill is stuck in the parliament review, so it's not clear whether MPs will manage to adopt the law before December 16th, or if Zhanaozen will be renamed by way of exception before the Independence Day.
25-year-old Laura Akhmetova and her newborn died in Kazakhstan maternity hospital of South Kazakhstan region with one-day difference under strange circumstances. Relatives blame doctors for the tragedy, while doctors claim that they did everything they could do to save the patients. Details in the next report.
Akhmetovs were really looking forward to raising a second child. The baby was born with a perfect weight, and the mother was already going to leave the hospital when the tragedy struck. The family never saw Laura and her baby alive again. She was in perfect health, and I have all medical records to prove it. Instead, I'm given papers about 2 dead babies and a bunch of other allergic diseases. I came to visit her in the maternity ward, where she was smiling and told me that they were going to be discharged the next day. And I did see the baby. It was in good health, weighing 3.4 kilos. The local hospital physicians say they did their best to save the mother and her newborn, but the diagnosis didn't leave them many chances. The mother suffered from blood poisoning. This wasn't the only problem, though. As it turned out, the woman had other health issues as well. Doctors told us that night that they were going to remove her appendicitis and later reported about removing the cystic. At that point, she fell into a coma and they performed another surgery and removed the uterus. She died without regaining consciousness. Head physician of the district hospital says that medical specialists cannot be blamed for the woman's death. If this had been the case of medical malpractice, she would die, but not her child. This much is certain. So in my view, this is not the case of malpractice. There must have been some kind of infection. I've been working here for 3 years and there hasn't been a single death of a mother. This is the first time it happened. The death rate of mothers and their babies is steadily growing in the regions of Kazakhstan. 16 young mothers had died over the last 10 months. Now a special commission set up by the Health Ministry will look into the causes leading to the death of Laura Akhmetova and her newborn child. The final diagnosis will be revealed upon a thorough investigation.
Kazakh round-the-world expedition of Dmitry Petruchin got caught by Hurricane Sandy in Bahamas. The biker made a video on his YouTube page describing the reasons for unplanned stop.
In the next few hours, Hurricane Sandy is expected to hit the northeastern coast of the United States. 500,000 people have been evacuated already, and in view of the approaching Halloween, the hurricane was also nicknamed Frankenstorm. According to foreign media, Sandy might be the strongest hurricane to hit New York in the last 100 years, with wind speeds in the epicenter already reaching about 150 kilometers per hour. President Barack Obama even cancelled his election campaign events in Florida due to approaching storm. We were warned in Cuba that September through October is a hurricane and storm season. Look at what is happening at the Bahamas. There is no one outside. Everything is closed.
Member of another expedition, on the contrary, arrived in Kazakhstan. Catalan Javi Naro is a cyclist, and his first big stop is in Almaty. It is a fourth stop, as his bike failed the test of Kazakh roads. His impressions of the round-the-world trip in the next report.
Javi Naro has only 10 days for bike repair and rest. His next destinations are China and Vietnam. Kazakhstan is a transit point for the Catalan and his World Bike Tour. 3 months of traveling in the country were enough to understand that even major local cities don't have much when it comes to cycling culture.
The worst part is also Kazakh people when they are driving in a car, because they are very dangerous for cyclists. Yeah, they don't seem to realize that I'm there also.
Javi began taking his travel notes with this video shot in his native Barcelona and continued filling the blog with impressions about cities and countries he visited. Naro plans to return home the next year, but even far away from Spain, he still follows the debate about Catalonians' strive for independence.
And yeah, I'm pro-independence. You have to live there to know what is the problem. And for Catalan people, it's difficult to live.
During his travel from Barcelona to Paris, the cyclist was accompanied by his fiancée Cristina Gomez on a follow-up car. This time she arrived to Almaty on a plane and plans to visit her Javi in Peru next.
Well, I feel proud of him, and it's a tough situation because you have to be apart a long time, like more than a year.
During the interview, the repairman replaced the chain and checked the tires, concluding that the bike is yet again ready to travel thousands of kilometers. Javi Naro will be back on the road on November 1st.
The Astana branch of Nur Otan ruling party reacts to the April address of the President Nursultan Nazarbayev on the involvement of Kazakh citizens in mass sports. American cheerleading, the mix of show, dancing, gymnastics and acrobatics was taken as an example.
Over 50 teams from different regions of Kazakhstan, as well as foreign guests from Japan, Slovenia and Kyrgyzstan, are taking part in this first national championship of this quite exotic sport for Kazakhstan. The event will reportedly cost at least $100,000, with ruling party members saying that all of the expenses are fully covered by sponsors, although no actual estimates are given to the press. Our budget is not small, especially taking into account that we've invited and accommodated all the guests at our own expense. Same with pom-poms. We've given them as gifts to all our guests from the regions. We order them in Almaty, and that's also rather expensive.
Political debates in the kitchen. This is where the civil rights activists decided to open dissident political fall. Using amateur camera, public activists are challenging the Kazakh mass media. Find out the political menu from the next report.
We'll start a series of mini debates with different opponents about critical issues currently topical for Kazakhstan. It's become common to discuss current political affairs over the kitchen table. Civil activist Yermek Narembayev and national patriot Mukhtar Tayjan faced each other over a casual debate in a kitchen discussing the origins of national patriots, socialists and liberals in Kazakhstan. This way, the participants of an improvised kitchen talk show challenged the state-run media. Popular reporting uncontrolled by big-shot editors or the authorities will help create dozens similar more shows. We have no debates in Kazakhstan at all. One cannot consider debates that took place prior to the presidential elections, as they were all pre-moderated. I believe that anyone who intends to be in politics should know that they have to be able to argue and prove that their political views are the right ones. However, our politicians are not aware of this. Melsi Liusizov, who ran for presidency several times, approves of on-air political debates. The environmentalist also seems to be involved in every election campaigns since Kazakhstan became sovereign. Nevertheless, he has never debated with an incumbent president Nursultan Nazarbayev, yet Liusizov believes that facing each other at a political ring should be a mandatory sport for all presidential candidates.
мозги начинают работать.
You start using your brain and begin to realize who's right and wrong. Having different sources is a good thing as well. In America, for instance, presidential debates are very hard and held openly. And that's where the truth is revealed, because the one who is lying never wins.
Жестко ставят эти вопросы.
Another multiple presidential candidate, Gani Kasimov, later said that competing in eloquence with the president was never essential for him. The candidate of the United Opposition, Sirik Bolsun Abdildin, tried to challenge the head of state back in 1999, but the president has declined an invitation. Moreover, it seems to become an unwritten rule to any election campaign in Kazakhstan ever since.
The world is celebrating the 43rd anniversary of the net on October 29th. This is when the first host-to-host message was sent. With time, billions of people of different age and social categories joined internet, and now it even has its own patrons. More details in the next report.
It is hard to get little Amar off internet. He is only 5 but rarely leaves his computer alone, if only to eat something. I look at people, different sites and play games. At first, Amar's mother was happy for her advanced son, but now she's worried about his internet dependency. For almost a year, he hasn't read any books, wasn't interested in studying English or anything else for that matter. He can sit still at the dinner table thinking all the time of running back to the computer. When we visit other people, he keeps whining and asking to go back home where there is internet and computer games. Kazakhstan bloggers actively discuss the content of local internet sites at a recent meeting in Astana. Unsurprisingly, it appears that most socially active users live in large cities despite wide availability of the internet across the rest of the country. Most bloggers are from Almaty and Astana. Unfortunately, the situation in the regions is somewhat worse in this respect. You know that most things happened in Astana and Almaty, and it is easier to write about these events. Therefore, political and social issues are often lost in this sea of information. Religious users also divided the World Wide Web in their own way. For instance, Catholics even designated its own patron, while the Orthodox Church is unlikely to follow suit, explains Father Vladimir. I don't think this is really necessary. It's almost like appointing holy patrons for TV channels or newspapers. We consider the internet a convenient and cheap media environment, that's all. In the meantime, the 5-year-old Amar is rushing back to his keyboard and monitor. He is indeed a real user of a system invented 43 years ago and designated to transfer of data from one computer to the other.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.